going to turn on the recording. So welcome to anybody who's joining us on the recording. This is our second Cara career development webinar, and this one is on raising your professional profile. So we will have plenty of time for interaction. We'll have plenty of time for you to give your ideas. We'll have a proper question and answer at the end. So just a little bit about myself and my co-presenter. My name is Anne Forde. I'm on the left. I'm one of the career consultants at the University of Cambridge, and I work specifically with postdocs. And Sharon McGuire, who's going to host the next webinar on academic applications, is here managing the chat, and Sharon will chip in as and when she'd like to. But I'm leading the webinar today, and we hope we can help you raise your profile. So what's the overall aim of what we're trying to achieve today? Oh, before I start, I'm quite new to Zoom webinar. I believe if I have a host screen function, but if you click on, if you don't want the full screen, you can click escape and view options, and you can have the chat open and the participant list. And if you go down to the right-hand corner where that red mark is, you can actually raise your hand. I'm going to try and get through the material, so I'm not sure I will see that hand all the time. Sharon will be managing or looking at the chat, so we'll do our best to address anything that you need. So let's have a look at what we're going to do today. And one of the things I really wanted to emphasize is that, first of all, thank you for everything you're contributing to the UK academia already. So I think that's something that's very important to us in UK academia, and to myself and my co-presenter, is that you're already giving a lot to our universities and our sector. And you've already achieved a lot, and I think that's worth putting into perspective. So many of the postdocs, for example, I meet at the University of Cambridge, and definitely the PhD students, don't have any funding or their own fellowship. So you've already written abstracts or proposals to get fellowships. So you're already contributing your ideas, and you've been interviewed by universities to get in. So this is already, you know, a huge achievement. I'll come back to some of the issues that I think that you can use to help your professional profile, that you've come from various different environments. And to do research for this webinar, I had to look at the Cara website, and some really moving stories about people's experiences, and very for different reasons, but very compelling reasons why maybe you came to the UK. And I don't know all your stories, but I think you will all inherently have a lot of resilience and creativity coming here. You have lots to offer in terms of your language skills, huge cultural awareness, and you are de facto role models for our researchers in the UK, both British nationals, and as you know, the UK academia has a very international structure. So there's a lot there. And the resilience and determination I can't emphasize enough. So, you know, I really would say that it's, you know, absolutely outstanding. So we'll come back to some of those points later on in the webinar. But overall, what we hope to do today is really step back and help you think of ways that you can increase your academic professional profile, both inside your host institution, but also outside. And then what is the etiquette, and what are the means of doing that? And then for those of you who might want to consider options outside academia, how will you raise your profile for that? So in terms of what I'd like you all to walk away with at the end of the webinar is more specific, you know, because that's a very broad aim, and what could we realistically do in this session? So these are what we'd call our learning outcomes for today. So I won't read them all out. I'll just give you a moment to have a look at them, and hopefully we'll come back to those at the end of the session so you can see if we have achieved them. So these are building blocks that I hope today can help you start raising your professional profile. And I'll go through these different 6 points as we go through the webinar. So the first activity I'd like you to do, so this webinar is going to be very interactive. I'd love to hear from you. I'd like you, if anybody or as many people as fancy it, would like to just type in the chat box, write in the chat box why you think raising your professional profile is important. So I'll give you a minute to do that, just some initial thoughts. So with this, there's no right or wrong answer, but if you have any ideas or thoughts about why raising your professional profile is important. Oh, great. Loads of things coming in together. Thank you. Opening more opportunities, securing funding. Excellent. Because of the high competition in academia, absolutely. Finding a good job, career advancement, securing funding, building reputation. We're very competitive. So yeah, absolutely. So it's not, despite your achievements and all the things you've done already, and that's what's a little bit frustrating about an academic career. You've achieved a lot and still you have to think about all these other things you have to do because it's a competitive environment and you have to be proactive. So that's great. I think we're all on the same page about why it's important. So what questions do you have about raising your academic profile? And I'm asking this just to get a sense of which areas do you think are maybe difficult, or what areas would you like specific help with? And to do that, I'm launching a poll, one of these quizzes we have in webinars. All the answers are anonymous. And if you can just write in, and you can pick as many of these as you like. So I'll give you again a little while to fill that out. There's quite a few people who have voted. That's great. Again, no right or wrong. If you have any other questions. And yeah. Please write any other questions in the chat box. Okay. So I'm going to publish those results. So just the last chance to vote. Excellent, thank you. And let me just share the results. So this is interesting to see what you think, what your questions are. So what you should be focusing on is the top question. So, because there's a lot you could do. And where you can find the experience is popular too, and how do you find people who can help. Yeah, and some of the other aspects are also popular. And if there's anything in the chat box, maybe Sharon could have a look. So that's just get a sense of where you are in terms of what would be useful to know about today in terms of raising your academic profile. So I'll stop sharing those results. We'll just close down that poll. So.
Oh, Anne, there was some questions that you'll probably be addressing later on. Is it about networking only? Is it about publishing articles?
Okay, great. Thank you, Sharon. That's really useful to know. Yes, we'll go into specifics during the session, and if we don't address them, we're really happy to have a look at them towards the end. Great stuff. So let's look very broadly what comprises an academic profile. So these are in very broad terms what you need to do. So, and this is we'll come back to non-academic careers later, but I'm talking about academia here, is known for work in your field, as in your academic field, your discipline. Known also as a good colleague at your institution, are you somebody who helps people? Are you somebody who's proactive and thinks of ways to help either the research group you work with, or you might work on your own, or the whole department, or even the whole institution? So are you also somebody who's known that contributes to the community being even broader than your host institution? So let's say you're in a field of history or biology. In that discipline area, you may be somebody who gets involved in that broader community. If you also have, particularly if you're going outside academia, have you got experience, obvious experience and transferable skills for roles outside academia, and how does that come across? So they're the broad things that you want for both academic career and, the last point, a non-academic career. So let's have a look at what career stage you're at now and what your future career options and preferences are. So I thought it'd be useful for us to know what are your future career ambitions. And again, we're going to use the poll just to actually find out what are the options. I'm going to launch this now. You don't have to, you can pick a combination of things. So I'll just launch that poll. Hopefully it's self-explanatory. And this is really your next step. But if you want to talk about much further down the line, you can too. So I'm going to share the results shortly. Again, there's no right and wrong with this. So just to get a sense where we are. So lectureship is the top future career ambition. Postdoc is also very popular, but also related to research outside academia. And then some people are looking at outside academia and unrelated research. And some people are looking at a combination of above, because in terms of your career choice, you can have several options in parallel. So maybe you'd like lectureship, but you also would consider other options, and that can be a really positive thing. So I will stop sharing those results, and we'll be doing some more polls as we go along. As I said, all the results are displayed anonymously, so don't worry, nobody knows who's voted for what. But since academia is still the top choice, we'll start looking at the UK academic career path. And this was last week or 2 weeks ago. Donald Lush was talking a lot about UK academia, all the measures and pressures in it, but just wanted to give you a feel for the kind of career path for those of you who maybe are not familiar with it. So going from a master's to a PhD, so some of you are aiming for postdocs, you might be PhD students at the moment. Some of you, well, you're all Cara fellows, so you have fellowships of some sort. So this red line is the kind of, these are all the temporary, to the left of the red line are the temporary fixed term positions. And when I say they're not independent, that varies from discipline to discipline, but meaning you usually do work with a supervisor and it's part of a bigger, maybe research plan. If you cross the red line to the right, we're talking about becoming a lecturer or PI, principal investigator. And then you have, this is certainly in UK academia, kind of a permanent or established job. So meaning that it's not just fixed term, that's something you could do for the rest of your life. And then people are promoted to senior lecturer or reader or professor for various reasons, which I won't go into. And these jobs are open-ended, so you can really expand your research and really do that there. Whereas with the fixed-term contracts, and you'll know this more than anybody, that it does give a certain time pressure, and particularly for you coming on specific fellowships and attached to specific visas, it can be quite stressful. So this is maybe where on the lecturer PIs, the kind of long-term positions, there are some people who stay long-term postdocs, but it's difficult to do because it's not really a job that it's always attached to grant funding, it's insecure, and it's difficult to have a long-term career with that. Some of you may get fellowships, so it could be a fixed term, but maybe 5-year fellowships that can really set you up for a long-term academic career. So there's lots of variations. That's what UK academia is looking like. And the lecturer is the equivalent of assistant professor in some countries. So you may have come across that before. So given that in mind, and I'm certainly, I'm sure Sharon is the same, we're not saying you should stay in UK academia. At the University of Cambridge, we have people getting academic jobs all over the world, and I'm really happy and proud that they do. So I mean, we're really happy if you stay in UK academia, but if you get a job somewhere else, that's great too. To me, academia is a very international sector, and I think it's great that people work in different countries and move around. So, but of course, you know, it's great that you can contribute to UK academia. So how about raising your profile in that context? So I'm going to talk a little bit about reputation and then go to more specifics about what you might need to do and what would that look like depending on the career stage you're at. So what is a good academic profile? I think in essence a lot of it is to do with your research, of course, that are you making an impact? And that's very dependent on your career stage. So somebody who's a PhD student, the impact is not going to be worldwide yet. And people who are senior postdocs might be even known internationally. So there's different ways you can make an impact through publications, getting funding, presenting, etc. But it's making a difference, you know, bringing the research forward that actually affects your peers in research. They notice that you've made contributions that are interesting. And if you want to stay in academia, I think you have to be recognized as promising. So some people are very good as PhD students and postdocs, but they're not necessarily somebody who would lead research. And that's not a bad thing. It's just not their skill set. So if you do want to lead research, do people realize that? Do they know that you're somebody who's going to be promising and interested in doing that? So what experience do you need to do to have that kind of reputation? So the research is obviously important, but there could be lots of other relevant experience you'll need. And then finally, are you a good academic citizen? Because there's a huge amount of extra things you do in academia that aren't necessarily paid. They're not completely part of your day job, but you do them because you help the whole community. So that's maybe in very broad terms what an academic profile looks like. But I wanted to, you know, just have a bit of a discussion with you about what might help your academic profile. And this is a little bit of a sort of a quiz. So these are statements that you can have a look at, and I'm going to pull up a poll shortly. And again, you can vote on the ones you think are true. So I'll give you a moment to read them. So my poll has the same questions, so hopefully that's not confusing. And I'd like you to vote on things that you think are true. So if you don't think they're true, don't vote for them. Again, there's no right and wrong here. It's just kind of getting a sense of how you see raising your academic profile, and maybe it's in different institutions, there's different emphasis, or even in different disciplines. Hope you can all see that poll. So I'm going to end the polling. Most people have voted. You can just contribute a little bit more if you'd like to. And it's just out of interest, just to see. Okay, I'm going to end polling and share the results. So these are the things that people think are true. So working hard, people will notice you. And then the others weren't as popular. So lecturing is the only teaching opportunity worth doing. Only lectures provide peer review. Most people don't think that's true. My supervisor knows about my career ambitions. Only a minority think that's true. I have significant experience that many UK-based researchers might not have. So that was 29%. And my department will tell me if there's a suitable job coming up. So only one person thought that. So that's really interesting. Okay, so again, that's just a kind of testing the water rather than saying these are right or wrong. And we'll come back to these statements and just try and unpick them and see how they can help you. So I'm just the poll only allowed one selection. Oh, apologies, that's my fault for setting it up in correctly. So that's not really, only one choice could be used. Okay, maybe I can redo that before the end of the session and we can come back to it afterwards. Okay, so I'll stop sharing the results. So let's have a look at what you think might help you raise your profile. So I think you already have quite a lot of ideas. So what I wanted you to do is, depending on whether your next step is looking for a postdoc or it's looking for a lectureship, if you have a piece of paper or the handout we sent in advance, if you could write down any experiences that you personally might think will help you get that next step. So I'm going to time 3 minutes just to give you a chance to write down ideas. These are just initial ideas. Then we'll come back to you and let's see if I can get that poll behaving itself a bit more. Okay, so you have 2 minutes left just to write down which experiences that you think might help your next step, whether that's a postdoc or getting a lectureship. So unfortunately, Zoom wouldn't let me change the settings on this because I've already used it. But we will come back to those questions afterwards. Now, if people want to share what experiences they will think might help, I'm going to share some of what I think might help shortly, but you're very welcome to share in the chat box what you might think might help. But most importantly, write down or type down what you think are the bits that you'll need for your next position. So people are talking about publishing papers, popular articles, in, so peer-reviewed magazines, popular articles on social media, teaching, networking, previous lecturing experience. Yeah, I agree with all those suggestions. See how we're doing for time. We just have 45 seconds left. Learning how to make my research attract funding. Yes, definitely. For a postdoc, publishing, being part of a recognized education body, teaching, volunteering, networking. I think teaching will help more than other experiences. I have 2-year teaching experience outside the UK. Visa sponsor, publish a paper. Yes, I mean, you've loads of great ideas. So I'm going to stop our timing there. We're just a little bit under 3 minutes, but I think you already have a lot. So writing projects, writing papers, really important. Okay, so these are the things, if we get rid of, I thought were important. So if we look at the postdoc first, I think you've mentioned most of those: publishing work, conversations with colleagues about career ambitions. We will come back to that. what expertise do you need to develop? So what do you have already? And if you want to stay long-term in academia, are there any gaps there? So that could be technical skills if you're kind of on the STEM side, or other expertise, or methodology or collaborations. Funding proposals, presenting at conferences, teaching, you've mentioned all these things, organizing seminars in your department, supervising undergraduates. So that is when you have most undergraduates in the UK have to do some kind of research project or write a dissertation. So that's a form of teaching, coming up with an idea for them, helping them conduct the research, and then reading that research and giving them feedback on their dissertation. And social media we've mentioned there too. Okay, what about a lectureship? It's actually not hugely different, but I guess the big difference with the lectureship is you have to really show that your work is independent. To get a postdoc, you could still be part of somebody else's research program, but to get a lectureship, you have to stand out. This is my research. I'm the ideas person. And writing funding proposals is really important at that stage, even more important than to get a postdoc. But everything else is very similar. I think to get a lectureship, it's good to also supervise postgrads. So if you're a postdoc at the moment, maybe you could help PhD students or master's students, help them with their research proposals. Starting your own collaboration. So if you want to become independent, you may be able to use your current supervisors' collaborators, but it'd be nice to have your own too. So I think that's an important, maybe extra step for the lectureship stage. And we'll talk about how you might be able to find those people. Volunteering to peer review both grants and particularly publications is good. Your supervisors probably have editors from journals or books. Contact them, and if you offer to help and say, you know, I'd love to peer review, I'll give you my comments, and they might use those comments for them with their own comments, or give you the credit for it on your own. And people say that it's brilliant because you read some of the best research before it comes out. You get ideas how to write your own papers, write them well, or how people write grants, and you can see what works well, what doesn't. So it can be a really good learning experience, as well as, of course, giving something back to the community. And social media is definitely important in research, and we will come back to platforms that might be useful generally to help you raise your profile. So these are the experiences, and I think when you're writing down in your list, you're all very busy, and it's a matter of maybe prioritizing what you need to do. So certainly when we talk to postdocs at the Career Service in Cambridge, it's better not to keep doing the same stuff again and again and just getting more of it. Some varieties. So maybe you've done teaching a small group and you want to get large group teaching, or the other way around. Certainly lecturing is really excellent experience, and I think lots of you have that from the different countries you've come from. And think of the experiences that you don't have that might make you stand out. For example, something related to teaching that struck me talking to a lecturer who's got a job at a teaching intensive university, was saying that teaching administration is really important in his job, and actually academic employers like that. So that means organizing schedules, rotas, marking things, you know, the kind of the other side behind the scenes teaching admin can be useful too. So there's it's really finding out the job you want and what they expect you to have at that stage. So I'm just going to move on to our next slide. So if we've looked at which experiences you have, I wanted to maybe think about what are Cara fellows saying. So Zaid and Oscar sent us some really nice case studies, anonymous case studies of interesting career stories of Cara fellows. We had those in advance because we hope to do this live in London. And a few things, I've taken some quotes from those fellows just to get kind of real life examples of things people have done. So in terms of what the Cara fellows have said on which experiences that are useful. So this person was this kind of science background, said new techniques and getting involved in other activities that might be carried out at the placement institution. So other activities is a bit vague, but the techniques is quite clear. a bit more detail from somebody else, where this Cara fellow really went into detail about the extent of the kind of experiences that that this candidate got. And what's interesting about this person is they looked, they had a dentistry background. So it's a little bit unusual, clinical as well as academic. But I think that fellow really used, don't know if it's a man or woman, but their experience to expand that. So they got involved in teaching, they got involved in research, they were involved in writing a Cochrane review, which is evidence-based practice. They got involved in social responsibility, and because they're a clinician, got involved in clinical work. I mean, that is a lot of different activities. So I'm not saying that you have to do all of those things, but it just gives you an example of somebody with a skill set. And then they thought, who are all the people in my institution who would be interested in my skill set? So from research to teaching through social responsibility or outreach. And it's pretty impressive that it was quite broad ranging. So again, it may or may not apply to your situation, but maybe you could think of more than you've thought of some, you know, I'd like teaching experience, but actually I could also get involved in something else in the university that maybe isn't as obvious to some people. So it's nice to document what experiences or which experiences you want, but I think it's really important for us today is to move on to how you're going to get them, because we can talk forever about everything, you know, this is a good idea, that's a good idea. So maybe we'll just go back there. Oops, my slides are moving ahead of me. And I didn't want to actually show that straight away. But how are you going to obtain the experiences that you need? So I have some ideas written there, either for a postdoc or a lectureship. But if you have on your piece of paper already some ideas of which or what experiences you want, how are you going to get them? Is something I'd like you to do for the next 2 to 3 minutes. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. Now you might think, oh, this presenter is giving me a lot of things to write and a lot of things to do. But I'm doing it because I think if you start focusing on what you need, you're going to be a step forward at the end of this seminar, rather than me just telling you a load of ideas that may not be relevant to your particular situation. So I'll give you a few moments and I'll be quiet. Starting to read some comments here in the chat. Somebody's talking about funding resources for projects in the Middle East. Yeah, if you have expertise in an area in the world where you think research needs to be done, I think that is a really interesting type of experience you can get. So if anybody'd like to share how they're going to get the experiences they need. Yes, teaching ideas. I really like that one about online teaching is a big thing with COVID, after COVID. So you may have experience teaching, but maybe you can volunteer to do some online teaching. Great. So keep putting your ideas either down on your piece of paper or put them in the chat box. So I think how you're going to get the experience is um, already seeing a need, seeing what's missing, you know, because if you can fill a need, the experience will be created for you. So for example, the teaching one is a great example. So maybe some of the lecturers are struggling with online teaching. If you have any experience in that area, you could say, you know, I'm happy to support some of your teaching, or, you know, do some guest lecturing, online lecturing. Certainly at Cambridge University, it's quite hard for the postdocs to get, or PhD students to get lecturing experience. So I sometimes say to them, it doesn't have to be an official examined course, you know, an undergraduate or master's course, but maybe you could do some master classes for the PhD students, or for the master's students, or for fellow postdocs. You know, this is the latest technique, or this is the latest research in this area, and organize some form of seminars, something that shows that you're proactive, which I think is really, really useful. So, great. So if you're clear about what you need and then how you're going to get that experience, so whether that's finding out where you can publish your next paper, how are you going to get new research ideas, how are you going to expand your network, how are you going to do it, what ways will you do it? We spoke about teaching, thinking about what kind of academic service, that's like doing peer review, or being involved in a conference organization, or anything you can do to help, I think, is a way to actually create those experiences for yourself. Yeah, somebody's saying about your own research ideas, keeping them confidential. I think that is important. If you let people know it's your future research, I think they will respect that. And it's really important to get feedback on your research ideas early, to see what people are interested in, what bit gets them excited, what bit do you need to think a bit further, maybe you need to read more, or they know something that you don't, or vice versa. It is really good to talk to people who you trust. You don't have to publish it, but talk to people about your research ideas. So again, I had to look at what Cara Fellows say about how to get these experiences that can help raise your profile. And these are some ideas they had. So somebody helped with hosting postgraduate seminars, helped with teaching. There's a big theme here. Somebody else had definitely offered help with teaching. And then networking with academics and people who you co-author with. And or if you network with people, it may give you a chance to co-author papers with them, which I think is really, really important. So a lot about this seems about the human touch, actually going to people and offering to do something rather than waiting for them to say, oh, here's the experience you need for your profile. And I think your supervisors will be inherently interested in your career, but certainly looking at the academics, I know that they're just very busy. So it's not that they don't care, but they mightn't have the time to really think about your career and what you should do next. And a big, I think, mistake that a lot of postdocs I meet from all, you know, from all over the world, and UK postdocs too, they wait for it to be asked to do something. They wait to be asked to write a proposals. They wait to be asked to be invited to teach. And I really wouldn't take that approach. I would just offer, do some research, see where the need is, and then offer something. Great. So this gets us on to networking, which is something people talk about all the time. And some people like it, some people don't. It's part of our professional lives. And I think the key thing is, rather than seeing networking as a way to promote yourself, but it is definitely, go into it being interested in other people, and then people will remember you because of that. And show genuine interest. You'll learn a lot from listening to other people. So the kind of elevator pitch type networking has its place, but networking, I think, is about listening as much as speaking. And you will, if people know that what you're interested in, what your career ambitions are, you will have access to opportunities earlier, but you do need to be proactive. And I think what's really important about networking is it's not just for extroverts, and there's very much give and take. So I think if you're somebody who networks and offers to help people or put them in touch with the contact that you have, it's really useful. So for example, when I do workshops with postdocs, they might say, oh, I don't know anybody who works in industry and research. But when we pool everybody's contacts together, we have a big kind of community of people. So you mightn't need your contacts for yourself, but somebody else might be interested in them. So if you're somebody who gives and helps people, then you will get that back in return. I mean, you can't give all the time without ever getting something back. That wouldn't be fair. But it is a kind of give and take scenario, which I think you'll all be probably very naturally good at. Great. So let's move on to what activities. Again, this is a bit of homework. You'll get sick of me by the end of it. But can you think right now of 2 people that you already know that might be able to help you obtain the experiences that you think are important for your next career stage? And of course, saying that, I'm talking about raising your profile. So if you can write down your piece of paper, this is just for your own use. You don't have to share who those people are because they'll be specific to you. So 2 people you already know who could help you. Somebody's asking, is it inside the host institution? Yes, I think that's a good starting point. But if you know people outside, great. So people are talking about mentors, head of department. So yeah, it doesn't matter. Just people that come to mind straight away that might be really useful in helping you get those experiences that you've identified. They could be fellow Cara, other Cara fellows. It could be the Cara office. It can be very wide. So I think there'll be some people you already know, you know exactly how they might be able to help you, or certainly they'll be a starting point. And then if there are things that you can't, your own contacts don't know about, so they mightn't know the answer, but they could know somebody else who knows the answer. If you want to do some, use some networking tools, are there any tools that you could use to find people who you don't know yet? And that would be interesting to share with the group if anybody has ideas of where they have used tools where they found contacts that have been useful to help them with their profile. So Twitter, yep, absolutely. It seems really important for research. I see lots of jobs on Twitter. I see lots of great new research and getting an idea of what academics are interested in research. Cara office is clearly helping a lot. LinkedIn, definitely. So great ideas, keep throwing them in there and we can share those with the group. And what I can do is, I probably won't do it till tomorrow, is extract some of the ideas and put them, they will be anonymized, but put them into the PowerPoint to send you. ResearchGate, that's an interesting one. I had to look at this actually for my research for this session, and I could see that you could really link to publications, co-authors, what they publish, and keep on top of that. So that could be really good. And friends, yeah, it doesn't have to be work related. You will know people who are doing interesting things. Their friends might know people. So it can be broad. So I think writing down who you're going to start with and then how you're going to expand that is really, really useful. Okay, great. Thanks for everybody for putting in their comments and making the session interactive. So let's go back to what people have said about networking. Networking, the person who did, I think that was the dentist who did it with several different teams, really helped the communication skills. And that person's advice was about making good relationships with people, you know, which I think all the Cara fellows, the case studies I read, they had. And then informing your line manager and people around you that you're planning to apply, for an example, a permanent job, let's say lectureship, or whatever you're interested in. Tell them, because they may guess, but they mightn't know what you want. It may be different what they think you want, and that's absolutely fine, but I think you need to tell them. anything, just if people have any ideas of what they've noticed about the networking they've done so far. I think people have already said that. And future jobs. Is there any link between networking and future jobs? Has anybody found that it's been useful? Give you a moment to do that. So I think with networking future jobs, certainly listening to what the Cara, or reading what the Cara fellows said, is they found out a huge amount about jobs coming up and what you need to do to get certain jobs from networking, often from direct colleagues in universities. So it doesn't have to be, you know, it can be the people you know already, but there's a huge link. And Sharon's session in 2 weeks' time will really look at, you know, applications for academic jobs. So there is a direct link. So the more people know about your future ambitions and the more you talk to them, because the job market is changing, they will be able to update you on what's needed. So what I wanted to do next is have a look at actually how do you communicate with networks. And this can be with people you know, but particularly people you don't know. So the statement I had, the true or false, senior UK-based academics are quite informal. So I think that's true. So, I mean, I'm not from the UK. I'm actually from Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, and I have worked in the UK. I've worked in Germany in academia, and I noticed that Germany, for example, is more hierarchical in academia, a little bit more. It's changing. But I think people who, academics who are based in the UK, they don't have to be from the UK. It's quite an informal kind of etiquette. So what does that mean when you're communicating with them? And if people want to type in their thoughts, but given time, I'm going to just give you some of my thoughts on it, because I'm certainly not from UK culture, so and I have worked in other cultures, so you sometimes see the differences. And I notice when you learn a language in school, sometimes they teach you very formal things about how you talk to people, and in the meantime, by the time you use that language, the language has moved on. So some of the things I have noticed, it's not specific to Cara fellows, it's just international researchers, let's say in Cambridge, is they're too complementary, it's too generalized. So instead of saying, oh, your work is amazing, say, I would love to collaborate with you. So if you say, I'd love to collaborate with you as an esteemed professor, an esteemed department, an esteemed university, that's too general. You need to be more specific. So the next statement I've just put up, I think, is more specific. I'll give you a moment to read that. So basically, don't tell UK-based academics that they're wonderful and esteemed. Tell them exactly what you like about their work. Connect to the things that they like, their research, or you could talk to them about their teaching or admin. It doesn't matter, but be specific to them, and then they realize it's genuine. So if you're overly formal or complimentary, it can actually backfire, and that's important. So if you're writing somebody an email to network with them, you need to get to the point quickly and be specific about what you want them to do. So rather than a very long email about your career, say, I'm, you know, blah, 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 Cara fellow in this department, I'd really like to get some teaching experience. I have an idea of something that might help the PhD students. So you send that to the head of teaching in your department. Or I'm interested in collaborating with you because I saw your paper on X and I'd like to do this with you. And make it easy for them. Academics, unfortunately, are really busy. They tend to be impatient reading emails, so short and to the point, and then you'll probably get a better response from them. Somebody's asking about you, sir, or doctor. You can say doctor if you like. So you say Professor Smith or Dr. Smith the first time. They'll probably write back using their first name, so Mary, Tom, etc., whatever. And then you write back using their first name. So it's okay to say address doctor to begin with, but then go back to first names. Great, okay. So there's another example I'll give here, and you'll have these slides to have a look at. So this is a teaching one. So this is somebody being specific. So some of you will be in the UK longer than others. Some of you may not have any difficulty with any of this, but get feedback from colleagues and from the career service or other support departments. Have a look at your emails and say, you know, this is great, this is too formal or too general, or maybe there's something else you need to do. So to take away, not to do today, I'd like you to help with this is have a look at 2 emails you've sent to your network at any stage since you've been in the UK or before you came. What was the purpose of sending it? Did it work? You know, what worked well? Could it be improved? And who could help improve it? So if you feel that sometimes it's the communication that could help, just being a bit more specific and getting your point across and making sure people notice what you have to offer, because they may not. I think it's people are drowning in too many emails, so if they don't understand it straight away, they just, oh, I'll look at that again, and they forget about it. So it's nothing personal. I have a lot of academics who don't answer my emails, and I've learned to be very specific and to the point with them too. Okay, so what do Cara fellows say about communication? For those of you who maybe need some support with English language, writing skills is really important, and there's some ideas about Coursera for online learning. So, and I think your host institutions can definitely help you with that. So don't be afraid to ask for help with English language. There could be language centers, etc. So we still have some slides to go, but I'm going to speed up a little bit. I'm happy to go over 5 because I realize that this is taking quite a long time. But I couldn't but mention COVID, right? So we're talking about all these things you have to do, networking, conferences, and what's happening now with COVID. So academic recruitment is slow, as Donald said last time. So networking, you have to be even more proactive. It will be different and it could be difficult, but some people have said conferences, it's almost easier to go to a conference for early career researchers because it's cheaper and maybe you can network with people differently because it's online. But I think if you're talking to your colleagues, you know, arrange online meetings if you're not in your host institution physically. Arrange to talk to your supervisor, arrange to talk to people, just even a 20-minute video call. Tell them that you'd like to chat with them about something. And I think because you're not going to be bumping into people maybe as much as you would if everybody was back at work, it could be really useful to do that. So everybody's living in a very different environment, and it's very unfortunate that your fellowship overlaps with COVID. But again, if you can be creative, I think that really helps. So I've just come back to the true and false statements. I would say if I work hard, people will notice me. It's not enough. I know lots of people who work very hard and they don't have the profile they deserve because nobody knows what they're doing. And I think you probably agree with these. Worthwhile teaching opportunities are varied. It's not just lecturing. You can already peer review papers and grants. Ask. We know about the academics being quite informal and quite relaxed. Your supervisor definitely needs to know about your career ambitions. And I think you all have experienced that lots of UK-based researchers might not have. So that's like people were talking already on the chat about a teaching experience. So I noticed a lot of the Cara fellows have teaching experience, which is much more than we would have in the UK education system. So that's amazing, and that's something you can really use. And I don't agree that the department will tell you if there's a suitable job coming up. That's certainly in Cambridge, the postdocs complain a lot. Nobody tells me there's jobs coming up. They just, it's not personal, they just forget. So make sure you're on those job alerts, you're talking to people all the time. Great. So we're just going to skim through outside academia. It wasn't the biggest area of interest for you, but I do realize that some of you are interested in, that's good. In some cases, a career outside academia.
We seem to have lost your audio.
Video.
Can't hear you anymore.
Oh, can you hear now? Can you hear?
Anne.
Hello?
Yeah, can hear you again now.
Okay, sorry. Did it go just recently? I think
just the last slide, just when you put outside academia.
Okay,
yeah.
apologies for that. It's saying my internet connection is unstable, which is a bit disconcerting. So academia is, outside academia is really interesting. It might suit you better, but it's absolutely not a failure. We have the majority of I would say our PhD students are looking outside academia. It's because academia doesn't suit everybody. There are not enough jobs. So that means that a huge percentage of the people you work with will leave academia. And you mightn't know who they are already or what they've done. But if you ask around in your department, what have people done outside academia? They will say, oh yeah, I know somebody who went to work as an editor of publishing. I know somebody who went to research in industry. And all this network will be open to you. So you don't need to know these people personally, but as I said, people are really happy to help you, and you can help them with your contacts. And I think it's good to have a plan B. So even if, okay, I'd love a lectureship, but I am flexible about thinking about another career as well. And to get ideas about career paths outside academia and to raise your profile, we in the UK sector, one of the Cara fellows said he went to career events. So all of you will have access to something locally, as well as talking to people in your department, whether it's other PhD students, postdocs, or the senior academics. So what have people done outside academia? It's not taboo. Some disciplines are more open to it than others, but I think it's really worth asking. And because of time, I'm not going to ask you to write this in the chat box, but if you have time to stay after, you can write ideas of career paths outside academia that you've heard of. And how could you find out about more examples? So if you have any ideas, please write those in. Otherwise, I'm going to just move to the last couple of slides, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. So there's lots and lots of things. And I think what's key, if you do decide to go outside academia or want to keep that open, you need to think about, what would I be interested in doing? Yes, I would like to work in a journal. I would like to work in business. What are you interested in? And then find out who's done it, or you find out what the options are and then find out what they're like. And then ask those people, what experiences do you need to get into that type of career? I think the majority of postdocs I work with who leave academia, they don't do any extra qualifications or training. They basically use their transferable skills in communication, in analysis, in research. There's tons of things that you can offer employers outside academia. So it's a matter of working out what's available, what experiences you might want to get if you need any extra experiences, or effectively translating what you've done in academia to outside. Somebody's talking about humanitarian organizations, definitely. And all the advice about getting the right experiences, talking to people, networking, communication is all the same. So I'm sorry you have to run over outside academia separately. It's a topic in itself, but a lot of this, it's all the same, kind of building your profile. But I think the key thing is to find out what's available outside academia and what you would do. So to kind of summarize all this myth busting, I think just tell people what you want to do. Talk to them about your ideas, ask people what's happening outside academia, and then be proactive and come up with ways to help your department, a university, or the wider community. And the tip that people give us again and again who've got to the destination they want to is start before you think you're ready. It's really, really important to do that. And then, as I said, you are bringing a lot. So you have all these things, and I'll give you some examples. I've seen people, there's somebody I know who ended up working outside academia, and this particular person had French as well as very good technical skills, and the person also had Arabic, and it's just such an interesting skill set for an employer, that you have a lot to offer, you know, whether it's academia or the world. And I think because you have inherently done lots of things that are different, and you've creativity, that's going to show, and it should be something you're very proud of as you build up your academic profile. Great. So the next steps are just 2 things that you think, and this is the last thing I'll ask you to do, you're going to do as a result of today's workshop. So what two things would you like to do? And who can help you achieve those goals? So if there's only two things you can do, or you can do more than that, please write them down. So Sharon is answering some nice questions there. Yeah, part-time portfolio careers for academia. So I'd like you to write that down in your handout on your piece of paper and share it if you want to. You can share it in the chat box, but we will now, that is the kind of end of the formal presentation. Just going back to what we hope to do, just very briefly, is recognize experiences that could help your professional profile, then plan methods to obtain them, like who to contact, identify your network that can help, and think about your persuasive communication to use. And then if you need to do any of that outside academia, there's some pointers. And what is your next step to raise your professional profile? So I'll officially open, we have a separate channel for Q&A. I'm just going to open that now. Very happy to stay on the line. I don't know if people need to go, I totally appreciate that. And thank you for so many amazing contributions. Great. People are saying I'll edit and enhance my LinkedIn ResearchGate pages. I look for academia on Twitter and Instagram, opportunities inside the university. Great. Oh, so it's lovely to get all your contributions. Thank you for spending time with us today. Really appreciate it. We'll just have a look at the questions here. So, okay, there's some questions being answered separately, but if you want to put in your questions in the chat box, you can, or in the questions and A. Some of the answers have been very specific, so we're kind of answering one-to-one with people. So best of luck, everybody. We have I've put a few resources just on the very last page of what you could use. We have a blog on the career service. Donald mentioned Careers in Your Ears, and we have also the University of Cambridge, our careers website. I think Edinburgh probably has a great website. If Sharon wants to say anything about it or any resources, we can type them in on the slides to send you. So thank you everybody for your time, and yeah, happy to take more questions if people have them. In relation to visas, as Donald was saying last time, we don't have the qualifications to give you visa advice, but looking at the trends, the more specialized the role, the more likely you can get a visa. So anything with kind of research specialties outside academia is more likely. And we'll see what happens with the government new visa scheme as well. Great, so thank you very much. And we'll stay on the line for another 5 to 10 minutes. Great, let's have a look at this. Somebody's asking about, is it okay to look for jobs in the first year of the Cara Fellowship? I think, you know, given it's fine to look at them at any stage, you can just look. It doesn't mean you have to take a job, and it's really important that you are proactive looking for things because the time can go very quickly. I'm sure the university does like you to stay as much as possible, but certainly my experience is the universities are, and the academics, they know how competitive it is. They know what it's like on fixed term funding, so they should be happy for you. So do have a look, keep your eye out, and I would start definitely earlier. So first year is fine. Thank you for that question. So there's a question about first degree. First degree, an issue for a job outside academia. I'm not sure if I understand that question. Normally, if you have a master's or PhD, your first degree probably isn't that important, but do clarify if I haven't understood correctly. The question here, is it difficult for international students to have a teaching opportunity while doing their PhD? No, I don't see why it's any more difficult for international students to have teaching. It depends. I mean, if there were some restrictions on being paid with your visa, you need to look into that. But we certainly have students, international students teaching. I think it's always a balance, whatever activities you take on, that you still can do your research. So it's not that, you know, you could have lots and lots of experience, do loads and loads of teaching, but you always have to think, okay, is this giving me enough back that is helping me with my career? As I said, just doing more and more teaching isn't necessarily what you need, just getting varied teaching. So do some, but make sure it doesn't put your research off track. Somebody's asking about, is it too late to get a permanent lectureship after doing a lectureship outside the UK and then 2 postdocs in Europe? I have seen people postdocing for a long time and still getting a lectureship, but you have to show that you're progressing to become independent. You may have a lectureship in another country, you've come to the UK as a postdoc, but what have you achieved in that time? I think that's really important. Yeah, somebody else is talking about the experience in teaching. The language. So yes, I think teaching in a foreign language is intimidating. So getting some feedback, helping, maybe doing a presentation for somebody, doing it in front of friends, making sure it's clear. And you're probably quite fluent in the discipline you're teaching in. So and I think it's also a good role model for international students that they can see you as a non-UK person teaching as well. So I would say get feedback and improve your communication as much as possible. Oh, the priority to be given to natives. I don't think it works like that. It's really people who are proactive, looking for teaching and have something specific to offer are more likely to get the opportunities rather than based on nationality, certainly from what I've seen. Great. I'm going to go to the Q&A box now because I'm looking at chat. We have a lot of different interactions here. Where's this gone? Just close that down a bit. So 3 open questions. Oh, there's a question here for Cara. I don't know if anybody on Cara is able to type an answer. It would be great if Cara starts looking at ways to help fellows apply for the Global Talent Visa. Any plans for that? So if anybody, maybe the Cara office could get back about that rather than if we don't have time to address it now. There's certainly Zaid from Cara was going to listen in on the session. I see, you know, Oscar is still there, so I'll let you answer that in whatever way you'd like to do it best. Great. Okay, how are we doing for time? We'll stay on another few minutes. I know you probably all want to have a bit of time in the this evening to do other things. So it's been really nice interacting with everybody. Oh, there's a question about finding career consultants. So go to your university website and see if there's a career service, or HR might have some function. If not, I don't know if Sharon has any other advice. Sharon, if you want to come in with audio.
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
In terms of careers consultant, the best thing is to look for your career service or research or development professionals at the university. I think probably if you don't have any luck, then go to Cara, because Cara will get in touch with us, and we've got quite a good network. So if we know which university you're at, we can let you know how to find the right people if they exist. So don't struggle on looking at your university website if you can't find them. Get in touch with your Cara rep, and they can pass it on to us, and we'll help out.
Brilliant. Excellent. Any other final comments, Sharon? I know we've run over time, but if
Yeah, there's just a
anything.
question there that I wasn't sure if you established global network, your current university is not eligible to proceed with your established project, how can you move to another institution? I'm wondering if that's specific about on your Cara fellowship. And again, that's probably a question for Cara, because I don't know how the fellowship works in terms of whether it's something that is able to be moved between different institutions. So that would be something that maybe get back in touch with Oscar or Zaid. Aha, you're talking about Cara Fellow, yeah. So if you, hopefully Zaid and Oscar, if you're on the call, it's okay to suggest that you get in touch with them and ask what the situation is, because Anne and I don't know about the funding for Cara Fellows in that respect. But no, I think you've picked up all the other questions that I can see, and so there's not anything else.
Thank you, Sharon, for looking after the chat box and answering people's questions as they came up. And thanks, as I said, to everybody for being really involved and participating and writing down your things. And I hope you can go away with something that you can use now. And we look forward to the next session is 2 weeks' time, isn't it, Sharon?
Yes, I can't remember the exact date, but we'll be talking about academic applications and how to raise your profile, specifically applying for jobs. So we'll have a look at that in a couple of weeks' time. So hopefully the date's been made available to you, because I've forgotten.
Yeah,
I'll be running that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of every 2 weeks is a different session.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I will stop. Let's just see, there's a few more chats there. Lovely to see all the thank yous. And yeah, good evening, everybody. And thanks again for your attention, and we hope it was useful. Okay, all the best. Thank you. Bye.